What's up, ladies and gentlemen? In this video, I want to talk about leasing a Rivian because prior to yesterday, I didn't know that leasing a Rivian is actually a pretty good value. So in this video, what we'll do is we'll jump into the computer and then we'll look at a Rivian R1T lease deal. We'll go over the lease deal in detail, and along the way, I'll give you some tips and tricks when it comes to car leasing. And then towards the end of the video, I'll talk about the 1.25% rule of leasing and why I think that leasing this Rivian R1T is a great deal or is a great value. Now, I personally am a big fan of Rivian, but the only reason I never really considered one or I never really talk about them on my channel is because I thought they weren't a good value and I didn't think that they leased well. But now that I know they lease well, I thought that I would share this information with you all. So let's go ahead and jump into the computer and look at this Rivian lease. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on Rivian.com, and as you can see right away, when you go to the website, it says lease an R1 starting at $559 a month, and this includes the $7,500 EV lease credit at the time of lease. And you can either shop the R1T, which is the truck, and the R1S, which is the SUV. Now in today's video, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and shop the R1T. Now as you can see, they have a bunch of different Rivian R1Ts. Now if we take a look at this one, this is the dual motor all-wheel drive. It has a 270 mile range battery, 533 horsepower, and 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Now, ladies and gentlemen, electric vehicles are just crazy because this is essentially the base model Rivian R1T, and the base model has 533 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 4.5 seconds. If that's not crazy or impressive, I don't know what is. Now, if we keep scrolling down, you'll see that they have different specifications of this car. They have this one here, which is 665 horsepower, a 3.5 second 0 to 60, and 315 miles of range. This is the performance dual motor all-wheel drive. And then if I keep scrolling down, they also have the quad motor all-wheel drive, which has 835 horsepower, a 328 miles of range in the battery, and a 3 second 0 to 60. Now for purposes of this video, we're gonna look at the performance dual motor all-wheel drive. This particular truck has an MSRP or a price of $80,500. And here it says a lease estimate of $661 a month. Now here is the page for this particular truck. As you can see here, it's an R1T. It has the adventure package. It's the performance dual motor all-wheel drive. It has the Rivian blue exterior color, which is $2,500. And if we look down here in the bottom right, you'll see this truck has an $80,500 MSRP, and you can lease it for $661 a month. So let's go ahead and click on this $661 a month. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, we have the lease details. Now this is a 36-month lease. This particular lease, as stated for the $661 that you see here, is a 10,000 mile a year lease. But if you wanted more mileage, you can get a 12,000 mile a year lease, and that increases the monthly payment to $683 a month. Or you can get a 15,000 mile a year lease, and that increases the monthly payment to $727 a month. And ladies and gentlemen, I think, anytime I do lease videos, a lot of people say, oh, 10,000 miles, just isn't enough for me. Well, you can get a 12,000 mile a year lease or a 15,000 mile a year lease as well for a slightly higher payment. Now, when you go to Rivian's website or Tesla's website, it's nice that they have a drop down and you can select, what mileage you want. But when you go to most auto manufacturers' websites, you don't have this drop down option, but you can still get a 12 or a 15,000 mile a year lease. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, in terms of your credit score, this is for excellent credit, 800 plus. And in terms of down payment, it's $6,000. And if we take that $6,000 down payment, we add the acquisition fee, which is $895. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to pay the acquisition fee. And if you take the first month's payment as well, all three of these values add up with an estimated due at signing of $7,556. Now, I know a bunch of you are probably thinking $7,556. I would never put $7,556 down on a lease. And ladies and gentlemen, you shouldn't. What you can do is actually roll this $7,556 into your monthly lease payment. And for every $1,000 that you roll into your lease payment, your monthly lease payment is going to increase by about $30 a month, but we'll get into that later in this video. Now, if we go over here and look at the fine print, you'll see that this is for qualified lessees, and this lease special looks like it's available until February 29th, 2024. And another thing to point out here is that this offer includes the upfront capitalized cost reduction of $7,500, which is provided by the lessor. And this $7,500, ladies and gentlemen, is just the EV tax credit. Now, you'll see here that you'll have to pay a steep 30 cents per mile for excess mileage. So that means that if you get a 30,000 mile lease or 10,000 miles a year, for every mile that you drive over 30,000 miles, you're gonna have to pay 30 cents. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important that if you know you're gonna drive, 36,000 miles over 3 years, then get the 12,000 mile a year lease. If you know you're gonna drive, 40 to 45,000 miles over 3 years, then get the 15,000 mile a year lease. Because if you get a 10,000 mile a year lease, but then you end up, driving the truck not 30,000 miles, but 45,000 miles, then you're gonna have to pay 30 cents per mile in terms of excess mileage. And that's just not cost effective. So make sure that if you're gonna drive over 30,000 miles to get the extra mileage up front rather than paying this excess mileage penalty. Now, another thing that I don't see here is a lease buyout amount. Now, to my knowledge, Rivians do have a buyout, and what that means is that at the end of the lease term, you can buy this particular truck for the residual value. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is actually a great benefit when it comes to leasing because it gives you a lot of options at the end of the lease. Now, for one, let's just say that at the end of the lease, you just decided that you love this truck and you want to keep it for 6, 7, 8, 9 more years. Well, if it has a lease buyout option, then you can buy this truck and keep it for as long as you'd like. And the second reason having a lease buyout option at the end of your lease is that you can realize any equity that you might have at the end of the lease. Now, this particular truck has an MSRP of $80,500. Now, Rivian is going to set the residual value of this truck. And the residual value just means what Rivian estimates this truck is going to be worth at the end of the lease term. So let's just say that Rivian says the residual value for this particular R1T is going to be, let's just say $50,000. That sounds like a fair number. But 36 months from now, you know that these Rivian R1Ts are selling for $55,000 or $60,000. Now, I can't predict the future. I don't know if that's going to happen. But then what you can do is realize that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in equity, and that actually can, reduce the overall amount that you paid to lease this truck for the prior 3 years. You can take this money and roll it into a down payment for your next lease, or you can just take that money and pocket that money and put it in your checking account. Because I hear people say all the time that leasing is just like renting, but if your lease has a buyout option at the end of the lease term, it's not like renting. Now, if it's like Tesla where you don't have a buyout option at the end of the lease term, yes, it is like renting. But this Rivian, I believe, does have a buyout option, and buyout options are a great tool to leverage at the end of your lease term. Now, in this part of the video, I want to talk about what makes this Rivian R1T a great lease value, and that's where my 1.25% rule of leasing comes in. Now, in a nutshell, I have this rule of thumb that anytime your monthly payment with $0 down is less than 1.5% of the vehicle's MSRP, that's a good deal. If it's less than 1.25% of the MSRP, that's a great deal. And if it's less than 1% of the MSRP, that's just an amazing lease deal, and you should jump on that lease deal if you have the opportunity. So let's actually jump back into the computer and let's actually open up the calculator and let's talk about the 1.25% rule of leasing. Now, what I'm going to do is take the $7,556 that's due at signing. I'm going to divide that by 36 because it's a 36-month lease, and when I do that, I get $209.88. Now, to this number, I'm going to add the monthly payment of this truck, which is $661, and that gives me a monthly payment with $0 down of $870 a month. But ladies and gentlemen, this number is not factoring in sales tax. So I'll multiply this number by 1.1 because here in the city of Seattle, we have a 10% sales tax and we pay sales tax on the monthly payment. And when I do that, I have an effective monthly payment with $0 down of $957.97 a month. So what I did there was I took this $7,556 that you see here, I divided it by 36, and I rolled that into the monthly payment of $661 a month. I added taxes to that. So with $0 down, this is the monthly payment is $957.97. And when I divide this number by this vehicle's MSRP, which is $80,500, I get 1.19%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember when I told you that if your monthly lease payment with $0 down is less than 1.25% of the vehicle's MSRP, that's a great deal? Well, the Rivian R1T comes in at 1.19%. So using my rule of thumb or my 1.25% rule, this is an exceptional value and a great deal in my book. And another thing that a lot of people don't factor in is that this is a 665 horsepower truck. Now, if you were to be driving an internal combustion engine car or truck with 665 horsepower, I think you'd probably get 12, 13, 14, maybe 15 miles per gallon. And if you charge this truck at home on a level 2 charger, let's just say you have a 12,000 mile a year lease, your electricity bill is going to go up by about $30 to $50 a month, depending on where you live. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's huge savings, because if you were to be paying for gas for this truck, you're easily spending $200, $250, maybe even $300 a month, depending on where you live, because some states gas prices are extremely high. And if this was a gas-powered car, it would be taking 92 octane or premium unleaded. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching my video on the Rivian R1T lease. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I will get back to you. Financial knowledge is power. Please like and follow for more.